In Bravely Default 2, you'll have to take on the world's most dangerous enemies, giant monsters, fierce warriors, and the worst of all, Karens.
We wish to speak with the manager!
Bravely Default 2 is one of the best mechanical JRPGs ever made. There we go, review's over, go and buy it and have a good time. Oh, you're still here? Well, let's talk about what I mean by best mechanical JRPGs. Bravely Default 2 is a game that isn't going to blow you away with state-of-the-art graphics or a complex story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, but what it does give you is one of the deepest, most customizable, and most enjoyable combat and job systems ever crafted. Now, it's not an ugly game by any means, but I've got to say, as someone who was a fan of this art style on the 3DS, it could have done with just a little more updating for the series' move to the Switch. Obviously, this art style was born out of hardware limitations, and while it is beautiful in its own right, it is somehow more beautiful on the 3DS. On the Switch, it just feels like there is something missing. I can't quite put my finger on what that is though. It's not a big deal, the game does have some pretty visuals, particularly in the environments, and the cutscenes are very well done. Something else that's very well done, particularly in comparison to its predecessors, is the story, but there are a few caveats. Bravely Default 2 offers a much improved story in terms of pacing. There is a little bit of doubling back, but not to the extent where the entire second half of the game is just returning to defeat bosses you already defeated in the first half. What it really nails though is the ending, or should I say, endings. The back third of this game is where the story really shines. This is when I became really invested in the world and these characters, and before I do a quick rundown of how the endings work, I'm going to talk about the thing that kept me invested in the game for the other 2/3 of it, the gameplay. For those that have played either of the previous Bravely games, the combat and job systems will feel very familiar. For those that haven't, you can probably guess what it would feel like if you've ever played a turn-based RPG with different classes before. The turn-based system has the now standard Bravely additions, particularly the Brave and Default commands. Using Brave increases the number of actions you can take by 1, and Default puts you in a defensive stance where you will gain 1 Brave point. This is a fun battle system and opens up more opportunities for strategy compared to a more basic turn-based system, but where the gameplay truly shines is in the jobs and character customization. The sheer number of jobs can be frankly a little overwhelming once you've unlocked them all, but the game does an excellent job at giving these to you at a manageable pace. Once you do have all the jobs, the possibilities are endless. Hell, even well before you've unlocked them all, the customization options you have will feel infinite. The main cast may only consist of 4 party members, but those 4 characters can be just about anything you can dream of, and many other things you'd never dream of. There are a lot of layers to the system as a whole, too many to really go super in-depth in this video, but I'll give it a shot. There are a total of 24 different jobs in Bravely Default 2, and you're able to assign each character a main job and a sub-job. You get all the benefits of the main job, while the sub-job gives you access to its usable abilities. So if you wanted your healer to have a bit of damage in their back pocket, you could make their main job a white mage with black mage as the sub, or you could go all out on support and add a range of buffs to your healer's abilities by making their sub-job Spirit Master. In addition to this though is the ability system. Each job has a set of abilities that can be learned from leveling them up, and you can choose to set those abilities after they've been learned even if the job in question is neither the main or sub job. In other words, there are a lot of great incentives for frequently switching jobs, experimenting and really playing with your party composition as you play through the game. This system alone really is more than enough to keep you invested in the game while the story takes its time to get going. I would say there are some valid criticisms regarding the story of Bravely Default 2. It does seem very generic and just sort of there in the beginning, but that really doesn't do a good chunk of it justice. Like I mentioned earlier, it's the final third or so of the game where the story and characters really shine, and the way they handle multiple different endings is one of my favorite methods. While the first few endings you'll see are quote-unquote bad endings, they're not really the kind of bad endings you're likely to find in games with multiple endings. They're just kind of sad. After you've seen the end credits for the first time, you'll be able to reload that save, and when you do that, a cutscene will play before you find yourself right at the save point before you fought the final boss last time. Except now you'll be able to leave and find another way, essentially kicking off a whole new chapter. And that isn't the only time this kind of thing happens. You'll be seeing a few different sets of end credits before you see the true ending, but it never feels like a chore. You don't have to replay the entire game or even whole sections of the game or start again and make very specific choices. You're just simply playing the game. And as I mentioned earlier, the bad endings aren't exactly bad and could leave you feeling satisfied if you've just had enough or can't commit any more time to the game. There is plenty of additional content gameplay-wise in these multiple ending sections to keep you busy on that front as well. There are super tough optional boss battles that will unlock the potential of your jobs, raising their level caps from 12 to 15 and adding new skills and abilities. And there is also a card-based side game called Bind and Divide with a ton of cards to collect. You aren't actually able to complete the collection until you're much closer to the true ending. All in all, Bravely Default 2 is a deeply enjoyable game. You can spend hours and hours just playing around with the job system and building up your party. The battle system itself is great fun, and depending on how much of a masochist you are, it can be extremely difficult on the higher difficulty settings. The graphics might not blow you away, but the world itself is still quite beautiful, and there is plenty of attention to detail. I especially love the fact there is a secret ending that you can get for winning an unwinnable encounter very early in the game. If what you're looking for is an excellent JRPG experience, then look no further. I cannot recommend it enough. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.